Welcome to Scene, where the art world meets the real world. Every 2 weeks, we sit down with emerging and established artists to offer a genuine glimpse into their lives and minds, all in an authentic and totally straightforward manner. I'm Carrie Scott, your host. And with 2 decades of experience as a curator and art historian, I firmly believe in the transformative power of art, if it's seen. Have you seen Anastasia Samoylova's work? It's surreal. And it's also surreal how she's navigating the photography world and breaking through all of the glass ceilings. In our conversation, we talked a little bit about the way that her photography blurs reality with illusion and how she is really looking at culture through her lens as a foreigner. We talked about her upcoming exhibitions, which are nothing short of extraordinary, and her books. This is an artist who, if you listen to anyone, listen to this story, because she has just never, ever stopped to let things get in her way. It's just all been possible to her. And so she's kept pushing and she's kept making things happen. And it's a real story of resilience and belief. Anna Samoylova, hello. Welcome to Have You Seen, our little artist interview series in which I don't do a introduction, and I feel like I should because it would make this whole thing easier. But will you just start by saying, where are you right now?
I wish I could just do a sweeping view. I'm in my favorite place in the world. I'm in my studio in Miami Beach, but not that kind of Miami Beach. I'm in the normal people Miami Beach on an island off Miami Beach called Normandy Isles.
I'm going to make a bunch of sweeping generalizations here, but you don't sound like you're from Miami Beach. So how on earth
I'm
did you end up
not.
there?
It's a long journey. It's a long journey. It's been 16 years now in the United States. The sound is Russian accent. That's where I'm from. So it's been an adventure. I've adapted, and I've lived most of my adult life in the United States, um, ending up in Miami Beach.
Do you feel I'm asking this question because I struggle with this. I'm almost 50-50 in terms of time in the US and time in the UK. But I was raised by British parents in America and was born here. And I'm now more and more stuck on I don't know if I'm American or English. Do you know where you're from? Or when people say, where are you from, do you say Miami?
Well, and then they hear the accent, and the second question is usually where you're really from. At least, at least in my case, it's the accent. Although sometimes, sort of the Slavic diaspora would just identify me by my appearance, like, "Oh, we knew where you were from," and then I looked it up, and I'm like, I'm not even so sure that I'm from where you think I'm from, because I'm actually from the south, and then my DNA shows like partially Mongolia, and it's an interesting mix. But I identify, I think I'm a sort of citizen of the world. It sounds so pompous, but in a way, I think it's a good place for an artist to be. I don't feel a particular sense of belonging anywhere outside of my bubble of peers and friends and supporters and so forth. And it's been like that wherever I was. It wasn't like Russia and Moscow was a particularly comfortable place, where I felt rooted. I never felt a sense of belonging there. And I'm in a very strange place called Florida. But even here, I found my people and made a lot of work reflecting on this landscape.
So, but how did you end up in Florida? Right. Despite Taylor Swift writing about 27 songs about Florida recently, um, it's not, and aside from Art Basel Miami, it's not like an art world epicenter.
No, it's not.
So how did you end up there?
Um, there were there was a variety of circumstances. I arrived in the States in 2000, early 2008, so January 2008, um, to Midwest for my MFA. Uh, I already had my degree in environmental design back from Moscow. And so this is another, it's a whole other story how I got this idea to apply for an MFA. And it had to be fully subsidized for me because I didn't come from money. You know, the idea of a career in the arts was a very foreign concept for me. But then I learned that there were these programs where you can get a full assistantship and get your master's in fine arts. So it wasn't a glamorous school. You know, it was a private university that specialized in engineering and heavy machinery. So it's sort of middle of nowhere Midwest. But I feel like I've gotten to know the country from an angle that not every American had a chance to see. It's that kind of, you know, flyover America. So I was there for 6 years. I got recruited to teach straight out of college, and I got early tenure teaching at a community college actually. So
Wow.
that was very unusual. You know, it was always kind of tangential. It wasn't this path into the art world for me. I was always like this outsider, and I still feel very much like one. Uh, Even though I know I'm sort of there's these establishments that exhibit my work. Anyhow, so then Midwest to Massachusetts, I was teaching in Western Mass at Bard College, and I was tenure track there until I got entirely burned out. Um, it was just sheer overwhelm, and I started applying for artist residencies, and this was one of those where I got accepted, where you get a free studio for 2 years, and the studio was in Miami Beach, and actually, it came with a lot of opportunities, including financial support and grants. So that was what solidified the decision. And also, I wanted to stay on the East Coast because I'm still connected to Europe. And I knew there would be things for me in Europe, not so much in Russia. I've only had one exhibition there. And while I was there, I wasn't part of the art world at all. So I studied environmental design. I thought I would become a sustainable architect, but I was also working since I was 16, including being an event photographer and like shop window decorator. Yeah.
So, okay, just like basic brass tacks, you moved to the States to do the MFA. And is it at that point that you switched to photography?
Yes. So it's interdisciplinary art studies, focused on lens-based media. So I did a documentary film. It was sort of constructivism-inspired photography in the studio. I would build tableaus and then photograph them. I was always sort of focused on the existing images in the world and quite analytical. Um, and very much aligned on the formal level with the Russian avant-garde.
Meaning what?
On the formal level, the dynamic compositions. So some of my major references were, you know, Lubov Popova, Natalia Goncharova is my main person, Alexandra Exter. And when you put my images from early 2010s with those paintings, there's some very obvious similarities in formal decisions.
Hmm. And there's like 10 things I want to come back to. I'm like furiously writing notes as we go. Uh, well, okay, there's two things here. Let's start with the like, holy cow, how did you possibly get tenure track so soon? But you seem to have this as a running theme because when we met, I quickly discovered that you were about to do this giant, giant show, which is coming up in New York, along with a book with Thames and Hudson. Um, and so you're obviously, and I mean this is a compliment, like quite precocious, right? Like you're a young woman who is like, I mean, had tenure track and then was like, okay, I'm gonna go do this residency. Um, has like What do you think is driving you? I mean, you said you got burned out, but someone who's burned out should then like go lie on the floor and, you know, does something else entirely. Not, I'm going to go do a residency and like completely kick ass.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, I think that's what it was. Um, the burnout was from my energy not being returned in the form that I was expecting. I did get early tenure back at that college, and then I quit that to go to a more interesting college on the coast. Well, sort of. Western Mass is not really, but it was only an hour and a half drive from New York City. So I always, so New York is still very much the magnet for the artists here. Um, I'm finally doing what I've always wanted to do. And this was a long way to here because financial stability was a major factor for me. So, a teaching job was my form of day job, but I was also really passionate about it. And I still miss elements of teaching, but they're kind of fulfilled by the occasional like workshops that I do or master classes. I enjoy the interaction with students, and it's very different kind of teaching where your energy is really reciprocated because I invest quite a bit into these workshops and into those everyday classes that I taught. And these were undergraduate students, and many at a community college were first generation college students or people from completely different fields. So you get to know the country essentially from that perspective. Like I taught nurses and welders and vets and hunters. It was really interesting. Yeah, and the burnout from undergrad teaching that led me to this sort of radical decision, but it wasn't super radical. I already had, back when I was in middle of nowhere, Illinois, um, I got an email from the New Yorker. How they found me? It's online. So they just looked me up by whatever search terms, and they wanted to do a feature. And here I am standing in this small town at a podium at a community college, and I get the New Yorker email. It's like refreshing it several times. Like, is this spam? Is this fake? No, they did the feature. So, and there were a few things picking up for me, like print sales. There were some gallery exhibitions. I was connected to Chicago Art World, which is this sort of kind of utopian art world. There's not the same kind of pressure as there is in New York. So they sort of thrive. And again, coming from Russia and this lineage of Russian avant-garde, I very much identified with Chicago School of Arts, the Art Institute of Chicago, and Moholy-Nagy, and then Barbara Kasten. So these were sort of my idols at the time.
Hmm. How do you classify your work now? Do you say you're a photographer?
Yeah, it helps people. I don't feel like I'm really a photographer. It's
No.
I see the world. Yeah, I document the world through my lens, but then it morphs into such a variety of places, of outlets. I don't know, applications. My favorite term is Natalia Goncharova's invention. There was a show of hers at Tate Modern a few years ago, maybe 2018, that I got to see. Um, and I might misquote how many paintings she had in the show that she did when she was 38, but I think it was nearly 800 works that she produced. And she was, we often use the term Renaissance man or visionary. It's rarely applied to women, and certainly she would have qualified. So her term was everything ism in the time of isms, cubism, rayoism, and so forth. She did everything ism. She just,
Constructivism.
yeah, exactly. She just applied. It was about the thought. It was conceptual, but she wasn't an alien to the pleasure of form. So my work, if there's one thread, it's the vernacular, maybe the existing images in the world, and then places, because I studied architecture and I wanted to design spaces. So I'm particularly drawn to places and spaces and how places define us and how we shape places around us. So it's hardly focused on for instance, human figure, but it's also very much psychology of places. And maybe it has to do with me having to adapt to such a radically different place. And there's certainly no going back. So my book with Thames and Hudson, which is sort of the survey of all of my projects to date, is called Adaptation.
Is it? I didn't realize it was a survey.
Mm-hmm.
It's a full survey.
It is.
That's amazing.
Yeah, some unseen things.
That's amazing. So it's not just the Florida work.
No, the Florida work has been published in 2022, and I think it's still around. There will be a selection of that work there, and then this one was my first serious book. There was another one prior to that in 2015, so this is 2019. This is where I got really carried away with Floridian landscape and the sort of dissonance between the projected kind of fantasy image of that and the reality. And this is the latest. This is a survey of 17 global cities, including London, actually. Here. And it's called Image Cities.
Image cities, right?
Mm-hmm.
Do you?
Oh, and there will be a show. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No. Go.
There will also be a show in London, actually, opening in November at the Saatchi Gallery, which will also be a survey of all my work.
That I did not know, because the show I did know about is this big New York show, which is insane.
Yeah.
So can you, rather than me tell, can you, tell them what you told me? And I was like, jaw on the floor. Like,
yeah, it's wild. So the show is based on this project, which is a kind of a look at this place throughout time. So Florida's, and it's me and Walker Evans, my favorite photographer. So this historic kind of monumental figure in American and really global photography. In the back is his image, Freshwater. In the front is my photograph. So the book and the project combines my contemporary images with those by Evans that he made between 1930s and 70s. So for 40 years, he's been coming back to Florida. He didn't love it. It was a love-hate relationship.
how does that happen, right? Like, for anyone listening, watching, getting the rights to use Walker Evans images, first of all, is not easy.
Mm-hmm.
Publishing, especially photo books by women, are like few and far between. I think it's something like 14% of all photo books are of women. And so, like, I mean, you do the math, young women, even less. How do you manage to publish a series or a book using Evans' work?
Yeah, it's wild. You know, most of my life and just my general approach as an artist, you just ask, and then you'll see. And while having absolutely no expectations that somebody will say yes. So that was key skill. It was not innate for me. It's an acquired skill. But then you just sort of present it as an option, and absolutely you need to gain support. So with the flood zone work, I got Steidl, which is incredible. You know, he's an absolute legend. I had to fly to Göttingen, a small town in Germany, and I was absolutely petrified because I think right before me Nan Goldin left, so I was sitting on the same couch as Nan Goldin, you know, and then I think Joel Sternfeld was coming after me. It's kind of insane, this lineage. So I was just shaking the entire time. And then, you know, think of how many living documentary photographers who are female you can list. It's truly a minority. There are some historic figures, but it is really tough and it's very male dominated. And then there's this whole logistics if you are a parent. It's dangerous at times. It really is. There are some situations I get out of thinking, I can't believe I still don't have any weapon, nothing, you know, just bullshit my way out of situations.
Wait, like
this
what?
is not
Like
sustainable. What? Oh God, I will that's a short story assembly, that I could do. But with this Florida's project, so there was an amazing editor and writer who is actually based in London, David Campany. So we've worked with David on the first book as well, and he was very involved with this one. He was the one who made the pitch to Steidl. So the proposal, this one, I was photographing intensively. And after the flood zone work, I had a big archive that wouldn't quite qualify as environmental work. So I wanted to focus more on politics and just injustices and all kinds of things that are intertwined with the environment, but not, immediately associated with climate issues, for instance. That's been my focus for a while. So with Florida's, I was nearly 80% done with the project. And then I discovered this archive by Evans, and it's actually very easy to find. So somebody said, it was in Sarasota shooting, and they have this Ringling Museum of Art, and he photographed right there back when it was a circus. And then, you get into this rabbit hole of research. And the Met's archive, the Metropolitan Museum of Art's archive, is digitized. So you can just look things up. And then I spent a few nights doing that while I was shooting. And then there's this remarkable letter that Walker Evans wrote to a friend while he was in Hobe Sound here in Florida in 1934. And it contained things like fake culture and women's clubs, what people do for entertainment and not get high culture, low culture, automobiles and automobile landscape, things like that. It's really, I thought, sort of prophetic, like he was looking into the future. And Florida owes its existence to images of itself. It's tourist postcards, it's real estate brochures, it's this, the contrast between reality and fantasy image of Florida is so stark. And I'm drawn to that. And maybe it's because of where I grew up, because in part you survived that place by being an idealist. Certainly maybe not our parents, Gen X, but like the previous generation were idealists. And I remember my grandmother was really involved in politics and went to protests, and they believed in something. So anyhow, long story short, this distance between image and reality. And then I thought, okay, as a woman in the arts and in the field of photography, it's almost like there's no winning anyway. So I'm just going to dare and put my images next to Walker Evans. They'll find things to hate you for anyhow. So I might as well. So I did this side-by-side sort of layout, and it's not always immediately apparent who is who, where's me and where's Evans, and there's so many similarities in approach. And he also photographed in color. Sorry, go ahead.
But in some of the images, just to clarify, you said you shot them before you ever saw the Evans work.
Precisely, yes. I shot them before I saw his Florida work. So I was shooting already. Of course, I'm very familiar with his work.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and there's some formal overlaps, in how we see things. But then some are very obviously me, like this gentleman here. You can see. That's very Florida contemporary. So this is when you talk about certain dangers. And this, I love this spread, and this is, I think, relevant to the current news. So this is his picture of a torn up circus poster. And then this is my picture of overpainted Trump poster, and they're side by side, and they kind of create this meaning, that it's sort of read between the lines. I don't provide extensive captions, but you kind of get the idea.
Do you think you're political? I think you're quite political. And all the work that you do. Would you ever call yourself a political artist?
Of course. I think any good art is political art. And sometimes even abstraction can be political. I don't spoon feed the meaning. The texts for the projects are quite open, but you can extract my, position from it, but it's not immediate. you can still enjoy the work for, again, it's aesthetic and colors. But then that's how I bring you in for a deeper conversation, hopefully.
Yeah, it's not, I guess the difference for me when I look at your work is that you're clearly not a photojournalist, right? This isn't
Mm-mm.
street photography. It's you have a point of view. Uh and it's not to say that you're criticizing, you're very much celebrate. Like it feels like you're celebrating with your lens, but at the same time you're putting things into pretty sharp focus, as if to say, hang on a minute, you really do need to like look at this and think about it, not just accept it as rote or as fact.
Thank you. Yeah, that's the goal. So I love Evans's term for it. It's called lyric documentary. So it's kind of poetic documentary. It's still, there's a bit of detachment, there's a bit of abstraction. It's not photojournalism. I never studied photojournalism. And I find most of it too didactic for me. I'm very averse to propaganda. And so if somebody tells me what to think, and I need some distance to come up with my own thoughts. And that's how I approach my photography. Yeah.
Hard though, right? Because images can be used for propaganda so easily, even in ways that we don't know. Um, so the Evans plus You show opens
Mhm.
in the Met in the fall.
Yes. So it opens October 14th, um, and it will run until May 11th. It's a long show. It's in the collection gallery. So the Met is acquiring some of my work. So this will be considered the collection show, which is super exciting. So it's me and Walker Evans, and I don't want to give it all away, but there's quite a bit of creative freedom in the design of the show, which is surprising considering the institution. But it's going to be quite immersive and colorful, and sort of it's like bougainvillea and swamp green, and it certainly should feel like Florida, but not just the sort of a cheesy touristy Florida. This idea of sort of Florida Gothic. My favorite writer on the subject is based here. She's originally from Northeast. Her name is Lauren Groff. And so Lauren and I will do a conversation at the Met in November 18th. And then Lauren also contributed a short story for my book. And this was another one of those. I absolutely loved her short stories. So she has a book called Florida, short stories. And at a certain point, I thought I was done with the subject after the flood zone book, which took 4 years. Like, oh, Florida, really? But then there was this other, the 2020 election, which was very triggering for me, especially when Trump proposed to extend his term to 6 years. And that's exactly what happened where I come from, which led to an absolute disaster. So I decided that my coping mechanism will be to just drive around in my car with music blasting and process my feelings and try to understand where his voters were coming from. And I did. So it opened my eyes to certain things, and just how insular certain communities are. I don't really watch TV much, but I picked up on some documentaries about cults, and it felt very much like a cult-like environment in certain places. And so, yeah, this year is especially important in the United States. And so the show opens before the election, but it's more than politics, of course.
And Lauren, you said, so you read her short story and then what, just emailed her and
Oh,
said,
yeah. So she's very popular. She's this best-selling author and a star. And I tried reaching out to her agent, and I knew she lived somewhere in Florida. And then it turned out that she posted about my flood zone project from the New Yorker way back on her social media. And then I contacted her on social media. I just sort of commented on something, said, like, the total fangirl. What happened with her book, Florida, it inspired this road trip. So while I was on the road trip to channel my triggered feelings about the election. Like, where else am I supposed to move after this? I picked up her book, and it kind of restored my ability to think creatively and not just panic.
Right.
So I owe it to her, uh, the sort of the Florida Gothic that she described so beautifully. Um, and then I managed to get her attention with social media. And then I drove over 5 hours to have a coffee date with her. and then and then she agreed to contribute a short story, which is incredible. And now we're friends. Um, and also what happened with the Met, I put together this PDF proposal together with David Campany, the editor of the book. And Steidl said yes to that. And then the Met still had to approve it. And some of the images have never been reproduced in print. They were negatives by Evans, which is,
So
this is
cool.
incredible opportunity. And I was prepared that they would turn us down, but then they agreed. So they signed off on the PDF. And then later, I think it was next year, or a couple months later, I was in New York for an art fair. And I emailed the curator, and she was familiar with my work. But I said, well, the book is here. Maybe you'll look at the book. Would you like to take a look at the final product? And that's how the show came about.
So good. Going back to the propaganda thing, right? Does it worry you? I mean, you said it. Florida kind of owes its reputation to images of itself. Um, and now, right, you've done a book, you're doing this massive show at the Met, and it's all centered around Florida. And Florida's having this moment because Taylor Swift, right? Let's not go into it, but there's two songs that reference it. And I do keep stopping to think and being like, what is everyone is obsessed with Florida. And hers isn't all positive either, right? Her songs are not all positive either. It's also the fastest growing, or Miami. Is it Miami? Miami's the fastest growing city in America and the fastest growing city outside of China, I think. That's true. I think it might
It's
be.
pretty packed.
Yeah, it's either that or what's Palm Beach. Palm Beach may be the fastest growing city. One or the other. Someone will fact check us when this goes live, and we'll know the answer. But yeah, do you worry that your images are going to turn into like helping Florida grow?
Interesting. They're not quite the postcards you would
No,
think.
no, I know.
Not at all. And I find it just a really fascinating subject to me. And this is a very subjective position. And that's why I call the book Florida's Multiple. So it's me and Walker Evans. And also, I believe Florida can be easily divided into 5 different states. And I live in a bubble. So Miami is certainly a bubble. I believe, and it might not be the case, but I believe that Florida represents what's going on in the nation as a whole. Um, and this is the joke that I came up with. You take New York and Alabama, and you get Florida, or you take California and Texas, and you get Florida again. It's just really condensed here, and it's exaggerated, amplified, and it's expressed very openly. The Florida Man, another great book on the subject is Oh, Florida. So Florida to me is just a stand-in really for the nation. In a more maybe like borderline kitsch version of that. It's this sort of condensed Americana. And New Yorkers don't want to have anything to do with that statement, but they've hardly ever lived or even been outside of their bubble of New York. Maybe they'll take a trip to California, but other than that, they've not seen their own nation. And I'm, of course, this insider outsider, so I have a little bit of this detached perspective, but I'm also, most of my adult life has been spent here. This year will be my first ever in my life. I'm turning 40, and this will be the first ever Democratic presidential election for me. And these are the candidates that it's like, how can you not be political in this climate?
Right. And it's wild. I mean, I have both passports. I grew up trading both passports currency because it was cool. When I came to the UK to see my dad and extended family, it was cool to be from America. And then I
Mm-hmm.
go back to America and it was super cool to be British, right? And now I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
well, I don't know. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I either is so good right now.
Yeah,
We definitely need different people running to run the countries. Um,
yeah.
it's not to put too fine of a point of it, and I am conscious. I try really hard to keep these short, and this is not working. We're like 4 minutes over already.
Oh no, I'm sorry.
It's all your fault for being so good.
I feel like it is.
No,
Or
it's not.
just being verbose.
No, it's good. It's good. No, but not to put too fine of a point of it. Also, right? Like the fact that the Met is collecting your work is giant, right? Women are still not in permanent collections of museums at all, in a way that shows equity. But also, you're having a show there, right? And women are not represented in shows in museums. Have you felt the kind of weight of that yet, or do you think it'll hit you when you're standing in the Met and you're like, I am not even 40 and I have a show at the Metropolitan Museum?
I will be.
What's that? Will you be 40 by then?
I will be like at that time. Yeah, yeah. I'm turning next month. Yeah, it's been a couple of years that the show has been approved because it had to go all the way to the director to be approved. And I'm so immensely grateful to the curator. So it's again, there's been a lot of champions in my journey, and so many of them have been women. My editor has been a man up until this point. Who knows was the next book? I'm of course working on the next project. But then I was filling out the application for the Guggenheim grant, fifth time that I'm not getting it. And then you have to do your whole, it takes me a week to put it together. And then you have to list all the shows. And I realized I had 90 exhibitions, 90.
90.
Yeah. And I think nearly half of those were institutional, and at least a quarter were solo shows. I've worked very hard in the last 15 years, but it's a different kind of exposure that you get as a woman. First 5 years of my son's life, I couldn't really travel. So I couldn't be in this kind of location photography genre. It was just unrealistic. And yeah, so it's a different trajectory. I still go to bookstores, and when I'm so excited when I find my books, or then I would ask, I'm like, oh, you have two books with title, there's Tati Khan's and Mopfre. Like, where have you been? How have we not heard of you? And you kind of want to say, well, it's kind of your problem at this point. It's like, I've been around. I've dedicated my life to this. It's been tremendous amount of work. But yes, at the Met, it's huge. They get, I think, 1,000 visitors a day in that gallery alone. So it's a Gilman Gallery. As you go upstairs, through the hallway to the European Paintings Gallery, I'm going to be on the left in the Gilman Gallery with photography. There will be a banner, and the show is up on the website. It's a bit surreal. I'm definitely going to need a cocktail on the opening day.
But I feel like your story, right, is one, you deserve it. Two, this is a lesson in like resilience and trusting like that little voice inside you to keep going and keep pushing. And I mean, you're proper grown up, inspiring human being. I just think it's so cool, so cool. And I said it to you when we talked. I was like, if I can be there for the opening, I'm there. I just think this is such a monumental thing. Hell yeah! Like it's such a monumental thing. And I think there's another giant story here. And I've said this at one point. I've said this to lots of people, but like at one point I'll go back and finish my PhD, and I think I'll end up doing it looking at people who are not from America who photograph America, because those people photo it best. And there's a whole story of migrant documentation of that place that I think is like it's just a core part of photo history, but also America's history. So
Yeah, I'm always fascinated by projects like that. And I remember speaking with another photographer the other day who was considering going to Russia to photograph. My favorite project about Russia, and it wasn't really laser focused on Russia, was by Russian Ghanaian photographer Liz Johnson Arthur. You probably know her. I think she's based in London. Liz Johnson, Arthur. I sobbed, and I'm not easily touched. You know, I've been through a lot, but it touched me deeply, that work, video work that she's done. I saw it at the Brooklyn Museum. It's like, yes, I want to see people who are not quite insiders. You know, it's the insider outside. I think there's so much value in that, because it's this sort of, I don't know, I'm as a viewer, I'm drawn to projects like that.
Yeah. Yeah, me too. On that note, I have about 27 other questions that I was supposed to ask you, and I've completely failed because I think I got wrapped up and swept away in your story. But thank you so much for doing this. And huge congrats, and keep us all posted. Can you just tell everyone where they can find you on Instagram if they want to go and follow along and see the rest of this journey play out?
Oh, thank you. Thanks so much, Carrie. And I really appreciate what you do. You know, I've been following you for a really long time, and how you champion women artists. It means such a great deal. You know, this is part of this ecosystem that's absolutely critical. And I totally fangirled you in Venice. So I came up and I said, "Oh my God, you're the Carrie. You're the Carrie of Carrie." I'm on Instagram at Anastasia Samoylova. So it's first 3 letters of my name and then my long last name. But then, you know, they learned Marina Abramovich's name. So it's the same number of syllables at one point.
And as we said when we started, it's Samoylova. Now, I fucked that up.
Yeah, we got it. We got it. Yeah.
Okay, I won't screw it up again. Thank you so much. See you soon.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Scene Podcast. If you liked what you heard, I'd love it if you subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And if you want to connect with us between episodes, follow us on Instagram at WatchSceneArt. I'm Carrie Scott, and I'll see you next time. Get it?